New York Times columnist Tom Friedman once said, "More and more kids will have to invent their jobs and then reinvent, re-engineer, and reimagine their jobs to remain competitive in this new competitive world." The world is changing at a faster pace than it ever has before. And with the emergence of other countries and with the increased rate of technology, we have to deal with this new sort of society. And many people say that the solution to this would be a more qualified workforce, one that exchanges high school degrees for PhDs. And therefore, the age of a high school degree getting you a stable job is now over. This is a diagram trying to represent how knowledge grows over time in human society. And as time goes on, you see the radius of this circle increasing. And it comes to a point where many say that there's just too much to know, and that we have to start splitting up the task amongst other people. But the inherent problem with specialization is that it limits what ideas we're exposed to, what sort of problems we have to deal with, and also the techniques that people use to solve these issues. One of the things that may happen because of increased specialization is this, what my friend liked to call tumors on our sphere of knowledge. There are fields that are very well researched and well developed, and then there are other fields that are completely neglected. This is not necessarily the best view of knowledge, though. I preferably like this one of the web. A bunch of different fields interconnected together in a way that creates new and interesting ideas. For instance, many of you may have thought meteorology is just taking barometric pressure or temperature and then trying to predict the weather. But now it's a combination of physics, mathematics, and computer science. Robotics inherently is a combination of mechanical, electrical, and computer engineering. And even business is no longer just management or accounting or marketing. It also requires a deep understanding of the technologies underneath a product or service. All of these fields require large amounts of specialization and large qualifications to be taken seriously. However, I, as a high school student, have had some success in each one of these fields. While specialization gives you a nice depth into a problem, it's more important in the future to understand problems, understand how to learn and apply knowledge, and how to develop solutions. So this idea of the web may be a bit abstract, but the implications already exist today. I already talked about robotics. Another related field is machine learning, one that combines ideas from neuroscience, ideas from sociology about how the brain works and how ideas move through different groups to help computers make decisions and act more human. Another interesting idea is one from biomechanical engineering that uses ideas from electrical engineering using overlaid substrates as a way to simulate bodily functions. This chip is in fact a lung. So if education is not the only answer, then how would you go about solving problems in the future? Well, there are many techniques, but they all end up having the same sort of structure. First of all, you have to define the problem. Otherwise, all you're doing is a mental exercise. Secondly, you have to learn about your problem. You have to understand what it entails, what people want in a solution, and perhaps what technologies or ideas from other fields may be applicable to helping you solve this. The second step is creating the idea, solving the problem, and perhaps creating a mock-up or something. But the final step is to execute. An idea is great, but if you don't have something that other people can touch and feel, then you actually haven't solved the problem. And then you have to step back, and you have to look at your solution, and you have to see, does it actually solve the issue I've set out to solve? A good example of this first step of learning is Fairview High School's mobile web application. the existing website, though well created and very functional, does not help students who are trying to access information on their mobile phones. And as this is becoming more prevalent, it's a pressing issue. So what I did is I started and I worked with some students talking about what features they want in their phone, or what they want in their app, and then what features do they want that they already had on the website. And then I also investigated technologies like Ruby on Rails or jQuery Mobile, both tools that developers use today to do this sort of thing. And then it doesn't stop there. I went back after we released the first version, and I talked again to these students, and I asked them what they thought and what we could improve on. And in 1 year, we've already gone through 3 versions of this one app. So a good example of the second step is this. This is a mock-up of an idea we've been working on at the University of Colorado, Boulder, in the Corel lab, a swarm robotics lab, where we work on ideas surrounding emergent behavior, replicating the ideas that we see in areas like beehives or anthills or even cities, where different little organisms work together to complete common goals. We try to replicate this with robotics, and each one of those hexagons you see on this picture is supposed to be a different robot that communicates with its neighbors. So the problem we were trying to solve here was one of office spaces. There are 2 types of office spaces nowadays. There's the cubicle-based system, which is one that breaks up conversation but allows for a lot of privacy. And then there's one that is the open floor plan system, which uses an open space structure but doesn't allow to increase the amount of conversation between workers, but does not allow any room for private and personal thought. So we aimed to create a system that takes the best aspect of both of these while solving other problems like energy efficiency, lighting, ventilation, and information displays. This is great and all, but if you don't have an actual solution, like I said, it doesn't mean anything. So over the course of 3 months, I worked with the University of Colorado, and we created this system of blocks. They're made out of acrylic. They have a front panel that has an LCD film on it that allows it to change transparency, and a circuit board built in that has LEDs and other sorts of sensors. This brings me to 2 points. The first is, though having a solution is important and being a perfectionist and getting it done is great, you have to understand when good enough is good enough, because if you can't get it out, then it, again, doesn't help anybody. For me, good enough was a basic user interface and some hard-coded functionality. And this wasn't only good enough for me, it was also good enough for an international conference on how people interact with technology. The second point is that solutions are hard and they don't necessarily work all the time. And it's a good measure if something is worthwhile doing if you fail a couple times and you keep wanting to do it. So if I can leave you with one point, it is this. Tony Wagner, an expert in residence at Harvard University, said, "Young people who are intrinsically motivated, persistent, curious, and willing to take risks will learn new knowledge and new skills and be able to take advantage of opportunities and create their own, a quality that will be increasingly important as traditional careers disappear." Thank you.